We are um, back into the, I would say, 15th, the 16th century mentality of Trump. I don't want to throw everybody under the bus, but I would like to say, without hesitation, European and even Baltic white men. It's not a racist terminology, it's simply the truth that these powers have gone back to a time where they have seen their glory days and they understand the withering away of their kingdoms and they're trying to reclaim power. We've seen it with France, in Burkina Faso, in other areas of Africa. We've seen it with Russia in their acquisition of the Ukraine, and we've definitely seen it, the signs of it, with Donald Trump. And now we see the full mentality of imperialism. This is Del K. Brereton. This is The Real Spiel. Shiloh Institute Stand Up. To my Hebrew mentor, Dr. David Israel, coming with the Hebrew in a few weeks. Stay tuned. We're about to launch another Hebrew class. I'm going to put that on here and tell us when that starts. And of course, to my spiritual father, the late great Jerry McCullough Sr., the Archbishop of our Reformation. Listen to me. When we go down the annals of history and we start to observe what has taken place over the course of the last, let's say 300 years, let's just go 300 years, not even go that far back, let's go 300 years, and we see what has taken place in the mindset of the imperialist, it is very difficult for us to look at what's happening now and say there's a difference. We have a gentleman, and I want to make a differentiation. I'm going to say we have a gentleman who we understand as being Donald Trump, who has decided to make movements outside of the continental and national structure of his nation to acquire other nations. And this is what I say: we have a gentleman who believes he's a king. He really believes he's a king. We've heard him say it. We've heard him say things like he's going to be a dictator for a while. We've heard him say that he wants to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He wants the Panama Canal. He wants Greenland. Now it's clear he wants Venezuela. He wants the resources. He's unequivocal. He wants to sell it off. He wants to do what he wants to do with it. This is why his affinity to Putin and specifically Netanyahu is so close, because they have the same agenda. Netanyahu has the same agenda that Trump has the same agenda that Putin has. They all have the same agenda, and their agenda is imperialism. The difference between imperialism and hegemony is something that you can practice within your own country. You can bring in so-called immigrants into your country, and you can sparse them out and say these ones are going to be the working class, these ones are allowed to be the bourgeoisie and the middle class, but we will keep our elite status, and we will make sure everybody stays in their place, and we'll put policies, police, laws in place, systemic things in place to keep people in their specific places, make sure that they live in certain places, make sure they don't have certain aspects of power. We will rise up certain individuals who have no power, but make everybody desire to be this, desire to be a rapper, desire to be a basketball player, a baseball player. You're allowed to entertain us, but you're not allowed to govern us. And that's hegemony. Imperialism is bigger. It's more outstretched than hegemony, because imperialism says you are no longer who you are now us. Imperialism is a forced melting pot. America has declared itself to be a melting pot. We understand that melting pot is now a torture pot, of which we say we will appropriate you, we will change who you are, You will become us and you will like it. It's similar to the Assyrian Empire, how the Assyrian Empire went about colonizing and went about building their empire. Trump is in empire mode, and it's interesting to see how um, he has basically stepped into the full force and showed everyone for the first time in history what an American president has the capacity to do. He's pushed the envelope of what is considered to be a constitutional government. He's overstepped and pushed to the side Senate and Congress and the rules of law. He doesn't care about that. His presidential edicts are like a king's decree, and he has gone full force to make these things possible. And the only people who have started to stand up and to speak are voices that have been so small that we rarely even take the time to listen to them because they don't come on mainstream news. I've listened to the ambassadors from Cuba and the ambassadors from Mexico and how they outlined and described the multiple tier invasion of Venezuela, starting with, of course, a smear campaign, establishing and saying it over and over and over. And if you see how propaganda works and how they try to seep into the brain of the weak, of the soft-minded, and say, unstable government. He's a dictator. No one ever comes and brings to the forefront that Venezuela is a constitutional democracy. No one, oh, he's overthrown the government, and that country has not seen legal elections in decades. They had an election in 2024. They just totally obliterate the historical significance of those countries. They don't talk about Venezuela has elections every 6 years and not every 4 years. They don't talk about Hugo Chavez and how that nation actually put Chavez out of power. They marched on the presidential palace and put him out of power for 48 hours. And then when the guy that they put back in his spot, he wanted to dissolve the entire government. They said, whoa, 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 mistake. And they put Chavez back in power in 48 hours. A nation like that, you can't hold fake elections. You can't stick a fake election down their throat. They will march on you. This is one of the things, when you understand a people, you'll understand the rhetoric, whether it's viable or whether it's invented. And they have invented rhetoric for the Venezuelan people. And they've also declared that the economic turmoils of Venezuela are solely in the hands of the Venezuelan administration, when America has propagated, has blockaded with military force, has caused economic sanctions and what's the word, to effectively cut off Venezuela from being able to participate in global markets. They have orchestrated and starved out, economically put under siege the economic systems of Venezuela. They have always wanted to take away from Venezuela, similar to what France has done with Haiti over the course of many, many decades. They want to control this place so badly that they have to create an international narrative that these people do not have the right or the capacity to handle their resources. So they require the imperialist master to step in and to save the day. Let me run your country and teach you how to be prosperous. And we'll sprinkle a few little scraps for you so you can eat bread, and steal trillions and trillions of dollars in natural resources from nations. And this is a prescription of what the imperialist has always done. We know, of course, the stories of Africa. We've heard about it so much. We are tired. People are tired of listening to how much they have stolen, the misappropriation and the changing of identity and the acquiring of African ancestry, even to say that this place is ours. We've always been from here. the Africanus in South Africa, the European and the Greek in East Africa, in places like Egypt, calling it Alexandria, even the appropriation of the Muslim and Islamic Arab to say that, oh, these places have always been Muslim and always been Arabic, and the displacement of Afro-Hamitic people all over the world. And they're doing the exact same thing now in South America. And the thing about South America is that South America has also participated in the disenfranchisement of Afro-Latino people. And now they're seeing that America doesn't see you any different than the same Afro-Latino that you are trying to stand your head and shoulders above and say that we are closer looking to this European man and we should stand head and shoulders above. But now you realize they see you all as an Aboriginal Indian, that they can steal your land. It's the same mentality they had with their indigenous people in North America, and it's the same mentality they have with you, but it's worse because you have resources. It's worse because you have the audacity to stand up and say that you have an army and you have your own government and you called yourself a democracy, but they look down on your democracy. They say your democracy is not real democracy. We will show you what democracy is while they are practicing imperialism. The audacity is incredible. And the United Nations is a scam. It's a joke. And the United States should be pushed out of the United Nations. They shouldn't be allowed to participate in the United Nations. And Americans all over the world, when they hear me say it, they're laughing. They say, yeah, we're the ones who are funding it, because the United Nations is nothing but the United States of America with the puppet strings of all the nations sitting in the UN. The individuals in the UN should literally walk out, you know. And it's hard because you say, well, how do we walk out? We walk out and we don't have a voice anymore. We walk out and nobody's going to hear and nobody's going to care. You don't need to sit in something constructed by Europe and declare that you have a voice. Didn't you see that even Traore walked away from ECOWAS and formed the Sahel states? You can do your own thing with your own region. And Latin America, you better wake up. You better unify the Caribbean and Latin America. You better wake up and you better unify, because they're coming to put shackles on your neck. If they can arrest a sitting president, drag him and his spouse all the way to New York and say and declare that they have the right to govern their neighbors. They have the right to discipline you like little children, and to bring you into the principal's office and to say, you can't run your country like that anymore. Not because you spoke rhetoric against them, not because you declared war on them, but because you are just simply sovereign, because you say that I won't allow you to rob us. One of the biggest issues, they say, oh, well, you know, Nicaragua, but Venezuela has, they broke their contract. They broke their deal with America. Listen, let me tell you the deal that they had. Imagine a joint venture of allowing American oil companies to come into your country and to participate in the pulling out of oil out of the ground. And then those companies saying, we're going to put you in the stock market, but we want to have the dominant share. And Chavez said, no, you can have the minority share. How are we going to give you the dominant share of our resources? And they insisted. And when Chavez said, absolutely not, they declared that Venezuela has stolen them and has stolen their oil, stolen their resources. And Chavez doing what he should do, nationalizing the resources of his nation. And they saying, well, we're going to shut you out of the market. We're going to make sure you can't sell it. And it's crazy. You know, Venezuela economically becoming a one resource country, and that resource being cut off by the majority of your consumer because of an American blockade. That's maybe an economic mistake, but at the same time, it's an unfair economic casualty so that you wouldn't allow yourself to be robbed. You know, let me see what our friends have to say. This is one of the issues no one is talking about, economic sanctions, and the hope that the masses will revolt against the government and turn on them. Yeah, exactly, and then look for Europe. Sorry, look for America and the other NATO and UN nations, the white nations, to become savior. And again, I say it all the time, like, I'm not trying to come here and people say, oh, he's pulling the race card. Let me explain something to you. Unfortunately, the world does not exist in colorless vision. It doesn't. And these individuals are making decisions based on their so-called ethnic rights in their mind. Trump truly believes he has the right to invade weaker nations that do not share his ethnic so-called background. And that's not going to stay for long. It's not going to stand for long, because we see that he's going over to Greenland too. But that's where it begins. And it begins in a mentality that your so-called nationalism is more important than other people's nationalism, that you have the right to destabilize somebody else's sovereignty. Imagine the capacity in his mind to think that he can just drag a president. And Maduro stood there in court yesterday, in the New York court, and the disrespect from the judges and all. What is your name? I am the president of the Bolivian Republic of 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 Venezuela. And no, no, I just want to know your name. And his wife answering in the same way, I am the first lady of the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela. And the dismissing of who he is, because that is not their narrative. They just want him to be treated like a regular citizen, a regular dog. And that's what they do. They strip you of everything that you have built yourself up to be. They ensure that you die in destitution or in secret. Same way that they raped Gaddafi before they killed him. They raped him. They made sure he was raped before they killed him. The same way they drugged the same man that they put in place, Saddam Hussein, and killed him. They want the world to see this is what happens when you resist us. This is what happens when you tell us no. This is what happens when you try to stand up for yourself against us. We will make the world say, crucify him, give us Barabbas. And this is the same manuscript that they have been following for thousands and thousands of years. And this is why, people can write it down in front of you. They can put it in a Bible, they can put it in a book, they can put it in an ancient text, they can tell you this is going to happen. You still will not see it. You still will look away and say, that's not what I'm looking at. The romanticism that is going on right now, even in America, amongst people from Venezuela, in principle, you should look and say, wow, that can't be right. This world is crazy. They drag Maduro, and to see, and I know there's not the predominant amount of people doing it, but to see any people from a nation celebrate when the president of your nation is dragged like a dog, and his wife dragged like a dog out of the presidential residence, out of your nation, and to hear the nation that you're living in, that you have now assimilated into, saying, we're going to run your nation. I couldn't fathom that. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I could not fathom to hear that America or any colonizer is coming in to drag out the president, prime minister of my republic, because I belong to a republic, and to say that we will now take over and run your nation, and people celebrating, people being happy about that. I can't understand it. I don't understand you. And then you have, of course, the individuals who, again, have assimilated, who've come to the West, have found themselves here in this side of the hemisphere, and saying, well, why don't you get out of our country? Why don't you go back? I'm not talking about people who are racially European. I'm talking about people who are immigrants, who have declared themselves to now be American, say, well, go back to your country. Why are you here? This is a wonderful place to be. And we have this mentality that the West is better than where you come from. I know many of you think, like the West is just the best absolute place in the world. And I have to disagree with you. I have to really disagree with you. I have to disagree. Like, economically, maybe, but educationally, quality of life, peace, the lack of hegemony, the lack of imperialism, the lack of racism, the lack of systemic disenfranchisement, the glass ceilings over your head, the capacity to actually retire in peace, all these things, the quality of life, and you talk about safety too. Safe for who? Safe for who? Who is safe? If you have the president of the United States sending armies to his capital because they believe it not to be safe. So safety and all these things are subjective terms that they have fed to you, right? Go walk down Chicago in the middle of the night. Go ahead. Go walk down go walk down New York City in the middle of the night. See how safe you feel. If you're so safe, if everything in America is so safe, we understand why do they have stand your ground laws in Florida and in Texas if everything's so safe? Why do you got to walk around with a gun if everything's so safe? So miss me with a lot of that nonsense. Safety is what when a community sits down and has discourse together and allows themselves to understand that that is my cousin and that is my mother and this is my brother and we are one community. Safety is in that. Safety is in knowing that there is an affinity between you and the people around you. That's what safety is. A man who's a stranger, who sits down in a mosque, in a church, in a temple, who sits down among so-called peaceful people as a stranger, immediately he becomes the enemy because the mentality of the human mind is to fight against anything that is unlike us or unlike it. The capacity to want to conquer and to control things that are different from us. That's how we think. That's how we've been programmed. So safety is a term that again is a dog whistle to say that you come from an unsafe place. Come over here to America where we kill you because you don't look like us. Come over here to America where we let you abort children at a genocidal level. You're not safe. You're not more safe in America. You're not more safe in a place that tells you that you are not really from here, that has disassociated you with the general populace for most of your life. And for those of you who are able to assimilate, you assimilate under the guise of saying that I am passing myself off as one of the so-called status quo that is accepted here until you open up your mouth with the wrong accent, until they look down the annals of your history and realize that you're not really from here, until you try to run for president, until you try to run for governor, and then they let you know who you are. So please, again, imperialism is the problem. It's always been the problem. And it's what the world has cured itself from until this new Trump generation, this new mentality that we can run the world again. We are supposed to be the dominant people. It goes all the way back to the Third Reich. It goes back to Hitler. It goes back to the mentality of fascism, that there are certain people that have the right to run the world. And this is what you are experiencing right now. And again, it's been passed off as trying to give the world democracy. Well, Venezuela is a democratic state, not according to your of course, your sensibilities. Even though Jimmy Carter said it's the best election system in the world. That's what he said. That they've got the best election system in the world. That's what Jimmy Carter said. Your Jimmy Carter said that. Right? So we have to make sure that we are recognizing when the world is trying to change back to a medieval period of time, and everyone, every little boy, little girl, old person, young person, everyone needs to stand up and says, not on my watch. You need to be like the brave people of I keep saying Nicaragua, the brave people of Venezuela, and say, we will stand in the streets. We will arm ourselves in the streets, and we will not allow ourselves to be invaded. We will not allow ourselves to be a colony. And somebody needs to literally pull the phone out of the wall when the White House calls and says, hey, are you ready to do business? Are you ready to cooperate? To listen to the audacity of some of these pundits who have gone on the ridiculous news channels, these American media sites, the propaganda sites that are now wielding all this information, to hear what they have to say, that they feel they have the right to tell you. You have no business thinking that you can be free in our backyard. It's incredible to me. It's incredible to me. And when I listen to it, I go crazy, right? Yeah, we have Swede for USA and Trump. That's your right. That's your right. And until you realize that you're screaming for Donald Trump, but what you're screaming for is a king. And so as you declare and you wave your Dixie flag for Donald Trump, you'll see that you'll have to lick the boots of your king. And everyone who serves the king will serve the king at their dismay. You will realize I have nothing to say about the Great Babylon, as they call it in the Islamic countries, right? The Great Satan. I have nothing to say about Babylon the Great. She will fall, and you will find out where you are. You will find out where you live, and you will see what nation, what type of nation you have. It is an empire, and every empire has fallen, and it will be the last empire to fall, and it's inevitable. And Donald Trump is ushering in the fall of the great empire that is referred to as the United States of America. And when it falls, I'm just going to hit you with some prophetic understanding. America will fall, and then Israel will fall, because America is the only thing keeping Israel safe from its enemies. And when Israel falls, and this so-called Israeli nation begins to dematerialize before your eyes, that's when Messiah will come. Because when Israel is surrounded by its enemies, and these individuals who are claiming to be Israel flee and leave pure Israel sitting there with all the enemies that it has amounted because it has hidden behind the great dragon, and now the enemies say you have no one to defend you, then you'll see Messiah come. But Babylon the Great has to fall, and you will see Donald Trump trying to bring the world back to an imperialist age. That will fail. Men and women will stand up all over the world and say, not on our watch. Keep your eyes open, because the king is going to try to be a king. You watch when he tries to file a referendum, following in the footsteps of Hugo Chavez, and file a referendum to extend the presidency indefinitely so that he can perpetually be reelected again, to extend 4 years to 6 years like they did in Venezuela. Watch and see. The king will never remove himself from the throne. Watch and see. This is Del K. Brereton. This is the real spiel, and we'll see what your great nation is going to do with itself, because it's about to implode. It's like a pig eating more than they can actually hold. And if American citizens believe that this is the type of world that the world will accept, then you have another thing coming, because your passport isn't going to save you. That Star-Spangled Banner isn't going to rescue you. You have to throw some cold water on the faces of those that sit in your Pentagons and in your White Houses, in your governor's mansions, and tell them the world is not going to stand for an imperialist America. Take it easy.